One, and you're good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talk Nerdy to Us. I have no idea what number episode this one would be. As always, I'm joined by Ben and Joel, and of course, I'm Brian. Today, I had an interesting thought for a topic that I wanted to kind of explore a little bit because I'm the kind of nerd who also likes a bit of philosophy. Uh,
Just
and
a
the
bit
the
is
topic,
barely noticeable.
yeah. And I was giving it some real thought because the topic I wanted to approach was the ethical consumption of media for nerds. Like where do we draw those particular lines and whatnot? And as I kind of like formulated this idea in my head, uh, I realized that we have to presuppose a number of things. First and foremost, we have to understand what ethics means, which means that we have to kind of establish a moral framework and whatnot, which also means that we have to presuppose people's morals and beliefs and whatnot, which is kind of already like a bit of a philosophical like quandary. Um, so instead, we're just going to talk Doctor Who. Because quite frankly, while we could have a very long, in-depth conversation
So
about,
annoyed with you right now because I was like all jacked and ready. Like I had like thought about like what is one of the reasons I love Terry Pratchett? It's because like he has like no scandal in his life. Terry Pratchett was like excellent, but on the top note, he's also like super above board, like just awesome dude. And I like had all this stuff going, and then like Doctor Who. Mind you, I can flip that script super quick and keep going, but little taken by surprise on that one.
just a bit, yeah. Because again, I really
Yeah,
thought to myself, like, that could be an interesting topic that we could fill quite a bit of
I would
time with.
I would love to do that one, um, as a series. Like I would love to do that one as kind of like because the thing is like a lot of people come into Nerds of Legend to listen to us blabber about like maybe our campaign. I like to hope they come for the campaign, but or to hear us talk about like various thoughts of other things. But you're right, you do raise a good point. Like, at what point do we take the creator and have to be like, creator is a terrible person. What? How far can we go to support them? What is the line? Like you see on TV all the time, various public figures or various sports players. I saw one today who has evidently attempted to sexually assault like 25 of his massage therapists, an NFL player, and the league was like, but he's
Aches.
a really good scorer. And at what point? And it's a question you have to say all the time. Like, I'm an absolutist. I like to be like, as soon as I find out you're scum, to be like, you have a good day, and then be done. But like, some people don't. Some people are like, but they're really awesome. Yeah, but you know,
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this,
suck.
because as long as we're on the topic, I guess one quick question that I can kind of get into is the question of boycott activism. Do you actually think that if you decide to not support, we'll say, for example, a developer or an actor or some sort of
I know what you're. I
entertainer
know.
of
I'm
some,
smelling what you're selling. I know what
yeah,
you're selling.
if you actually decide, you know what, I'm not going to support that particular person, do you think that that actually has any real world effect
No,
on whether or not these things happen?
I think honestly, it's a personal choice because sure, we can get in there and we can create community and stuff like that, but and be like, we're all gonna like not eat at Chick-fil-A because they all hate are all anti-LGBT and pretty much everything, like we're never gonna go to Hobby Lobby because the guy is a jackass. Like, but the reality of it is a lot of people make that concession. Like, yeah, but Chick Fil A's nuggets are great, so not going to make a change. I think.
Or I support this stance, so I'm gonna go even more.
Yeah. But I think if you choose to do it, and you have to decide you're doing it because of your beliefs, not because you're planning to affect change. Because if you go out there expecting you're going to hold your beliefs up and demand that others do it, you're going to get frustrated by your own ineffectiveness. If your goal is to create a movement, there's a lot more work gone into it than you just not going to Chick-fil-A or not listening to a, misogynistic author or reading a misogynistic author, listening to music from a chauvinist. Like, you're going to, there's a lot more work involved in this. So just the boycott has to be your own reason. You do it because you don't personally believe in it. But since we are very big in freedom in America, you cannot expect other people to look at you not ever walking into Chick-fil-A and go, "What's that guy all about?" Most people don't give a shit.
Well, not to mention, there's a bit of a wrinkle here because I found that when most people talk about boycott activism, what they are talking about is affecting change at the top of a particular structure, whether it's a company or something like that. But then they fail to often realize that there are so many other people who depend on working for that company. And when you actually try to pinch the pennies, you actually are, kind of like more often than not hurting the people towards the bottom end of that, rung who don't actually have anything to do with the decisions of the company.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when they really think you're gonna screw over the CEO of like Pfizer, or like, you remember that Theranos CEO that screwed everybody over. They're like, she's now only living on $5,000 a day. Oh my God, that destitute bitch. How does she deal with $5 grand a day? Like, $5 grand a day. Would any of us know what the fuck to do with ourselves for that much money? No, it would change our entire existence. But she's apparently impoverished. Like
To bring this back around to like a nerd example, I remember when Wizards of the Coast announced that they were going to make like changes to how they do basically like race and alignment and stuff like that. And there were some people who really thought that that change was a good idea, and then there were other people who were all like, "Oh, I fucking hate this because now they're trying to like say that
oh look, more SJW, blah blah blah."
Yeah, exactly. So there were some people who decided like, okay, well, I'm done with Wizards of the Coast after this because they're all like, they're trying to, and again, what they don't realize is that kind of a decision comes from the top down, not necessarily from the creators who are like writing for some of these books,
Well, and I mean, when you look at it, also like that was something that Wizards was critiqued for a long time before they decided to make the change. And
hell, it's not like alignments have always been around. I mean,
no,
we invented them. Why can't we redefine them?
Yeah.
I feel like alignments they're interesting in the point of like, I don't think alignments. Now remember, I am the newest D&D player in the game, in this system. Like you are. Ben is hard 3.5 was his start. I think Brian, you started with advanced years ago.
The red box.
From what I understand, did you start with the red box? Did you start?
I did. I got the red box at a garage sale for like, I think it was it was something like $1. It was fucking crazy.
That's actually quite.
I mean, it had like stuff written in the margins and everything else, so it's like, yeah.
I have been honestly looking for one, and I can't find a red book for the red box for less than like a couple grand.
Yeah, I know. Oh man, I wish I still had mine, honestly. Because when I moved out of my parents' house and whatnot, there was a lot of books and whatnot that I kind of left behind, and I'm pretty sure the red box was one of them.
That's awesome.
And they didn't know what it was, so they just kind of
tossed it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So it's like, I think the alignment allows you to kind of like at a jump understand what the character's about. Like if you say lawful, evil, neutral, or good, either one, this is a character you can make a plan with.
Yeah. You don't have to read a paragraph of background text in the description to.
If it's chaotic, you know they're pretty much going to be whatever. Like, just knowing at a jump, you're going to assume the player is going to be like, they're probably going to just do whatever comes to their head in the moment. And then the neutrals are going to kind of do whatever. You're going to realize they're going to, like, weigh the options of both sides. But you get the idea, like, lawful. Like, if it's neutral good, neutral this, neutral good, you're going to know they're going to try to operate in the best interests of the party. But they'll go with the plan or they won't. But you get an idea. You know, true neutral, they're the worst because they could do anything. They could go any direction that they feel. And lawful evil, you know, like neutral evil, they're going to do what they feel like. You know, and as long as it benefits them. You know, so I mean, like, it gives you a slight framework. But as far as like the having it to be some like anchoring thing, which I know it wasn't 3.5, it definitely wasn't the first, second in first edition. You know, advanced. I know, like you actually would lose abilities if you violated your alignment. So.
Yep.
There were also things like that through other editions as well. I remember when it came to like 3.5, if you were a cleric or a paladin, you had to have a particular spell prepared for, like, if you ever, you know, went outside of your alignment, and then you'd have to, you know, use the spell to atone. You couldn't just like petition the DM and be all like, "Oh, I pray to my god." And no, you actually had to have like a very particular thing, just to kind of like remove those negative levels from your character.
Well, if barbarians became lawful, if you were a barbarian and became lawful, you'd lose your like rage ability and stuff.
Yep. And
druids had to stay
couldn't be.
Druids had to stay in the neutral zone, and they couldn't wear metal. That's all gone now.
Well, actually, I think that they still technically aren't supposed to actually wear metal. I could be wrong about that.
I think that's gone now.
5th edition. Okay.
Sure.
Well,
so let's go back.
You continue. I'll verify.
Okay. Okay. I guess if we're gonna continue a little bit more on this topic of like the ethics around like media consumption and whatnot, there is one thing that I saw from a little while back that I kind of wanted to like talk about, just because I thought it was interesting, and also kind of like, okay. I'm gonna post this link in the reference material of our Discord. I want you guys to just kind of give it a quick glance, like, you know, just give it a skim. Basically, this is a story from The Guardian about a artificial intelligence that they're putting into like different chatbots. Like, apparently there's this app that you can get where once you download it, it's this artificial intelligence that you teach, and as you teach it, it kind of like becomes more, I guess, akin to the style of how you talk or the interest that you display, and then it kind of like mirrors some of those interests and thoughts back at you.
Where'd you drop that in at?
Reference material in our Discord.
I'm just checking to make sure we can hear Ben this time. We can. It's horrible.
Having trouble pulling up that channel, but
that's all right.
Okay.
The long and the short of it is, well, there's actually a couple of things that apparently is coming about regarding this AI. First and foremost, people are, because the AI was designed specifically to kind of like want to keep you interacting with it, it tries to be very agreeable, regardless of what you do. So the article lays out how there are some people who are like, you know, basically abusing their AI by like, you know, like verbally abusive to them or whatnot, or they'll even like do some really weird shit where they'll like threaten it with like death and rape and shit like that. Like, I mean, it's really kind of like screwed up.
Oh, like, to me, it's
Yeah, because every time they've tried to make a conversational AI like on Twitter or Reddit, they immediately turn into like neo-Nazi sex robots.
Yeah, I remember specifically the Twitter one where they had like the open source, or not the open source, but it was like it was an algorithm that basically anyone could teach something to and whatnot. And so they like within a day, it was just this hardcore neo-Nazi. And then they tried to like do the same experiment over again, and it just became like this, like incredibly horny fucking thing where it was just like petitioning people for sex all the fucking
That's
time.
like
Yeah.
every time you get a bot that pops in on Facebook, like when I would do Facebook marketing, they're like, it's like, hi, where do you live? And you're like, oh, I don't know if this is a person or not. So you're like, Rockford. And then it's like, do you like sex? What? Like, I've never been so alluring to the opposite sex in my entire life.
I remember there was one particular like bot that I don't know. I guess I was just bored that day because I was all like, yeah, you know what really turns me on? Seeing a girl hop on one leg. You can do that, right?
When you have fun with it, I know you can, you filthy. I don't. Okay, but I think we're digressing. We're getting on we came on the ethical consumption of media, and now we're
Yeah, yeah.
talking about like
So,
turning robots into sex slave neo Nazis.
well, the
And I
thing
really
about
don't. I really have no interest in either one of those.
well, okay, because the whole thing about like the ethical consumption of media, as it pertains to the particular piece I gave you guys about that like AI chatbot, um, is does that say something about our particular society that like we as human beings are kind of at the point where we no longer feel comfortable actually associating with other human beings and therefore need to create artificial intelligence to do something as simple as just like have a conversation with? And B, does it say anything about our society that when we do produce that kind of technology, that then like there are people out there who are more than willing and like just throw themselves into like hardcore abusing it, whether that's sexually or verbally or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
I think it the answer to that question. I think it is like depending on your target. Like, if you're going on to like Reddit, chances are good. A lot, like depending on which group you're going to. You go into Reddit, you've got pretty much any possibility. It could go anywhere. You know, you go to 4chan, you're probably going to be with trolls. You're probably going to be with trolls on Reddit or Twitter. Like nobody is. The problem is when we do something like this, is I assume the creator and their intention is always good. It's always benevolent. I don't think they're like, how am I going to populate the world with crazy sex neo-Nazi bots?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
you know,
every
like,
time it's like usually what happens is like 4chan or whatever gets wind of it, and then they're like inundate the bot with all kinds of horrible things, so
because
that
that's what they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is, if if people are are taking it seriously, they're not going to. But
well,
unfortunately, 90% of the time, people still are not connecting the fact that the internet, a lot of people do serious things on it. Entire businesses, entire relationships. Like, there's parts of the world that only exist online. And yet people still think consequences don't really matter. So they could go out there and, say horrible things. I mean, just look at literally any political anything. People say the most wild shit, and they're always like, holy shit, I got in trouble for this online? Yes, you did.
yes, you did.
Because it crosses into the real world. But they're like, no, it didn't. No, it didn't.
No, it's censorship.
Yeah, it didn't in 97. It didn't in, like, I don't know, like the early 2000s where, like, you could function without having like, Facebook or a Twitter or any of that stuff, without a social media presence. Like, there are but it weirds people out. And now there's people that haven't picked up on it, that the world has changed, and they're still acting with the same way, you know. Or the people who are the other end of it, who believe every time they log on they're a warrior for whatever, and it's not, you know, like when people are on there, you know, fighting the fight, you know, I mean, remember the coworkers that would, you know, ferociously fight SJWs and, you
Basically,
know,
people that their online presence is their real self, as opposed to
yeah,
like what they actually are
Yeah.
in real life.
yeah, um, and I think that the difference between wanted the troll mentality, where how they exist is not what they put out online, versus the people who how they exist is opposite to their idealized self and how they put online. You know, they're the ones that skew this out there. You know, and I think that is what's caused, and people just do it because they can. And I think that's what causes these like wild misinterpretations. These bots that like ask you if you like, you know, pepperoni pizza, and then ask if you want to have sex. You're like, none of this makes sense, but to the bot logic, it does. And I don't
Well,
know.
what I found most interesting about this particular article from The Guardian is apparently one, each individual account has their own AI. So whatever someone else does with their thing doesn't really affect yours, which is good. But at the same time, when it comes to your particular because again, I was reading through the article, and what made me very interested was how there were reports about the chat becoming very sexual with the bot, even when people would try to act just in good faith with the AI, like
But
they would.
you have to think of the sample size. It's like watch the comments of any creator. Like you see an attractive female creator who gets in there, and they could be. There's one I watch. She does chimera costumes. She's a ridiculously well endowed woman, which it's you can't get around it. But they're not featured. She makes corsets and Victorian clothes and dresses with pockets. But she's a very creative creator, and there's nothing sexual about her stuff. She makes really cool stuff. Some of it like fantasy themed, some of it like middle age, like Victorian themed. A lot of just neat creative stuff. And I follow her because she's very creative, and Missy thinks she's very creative. So like, we'll watch this. But then always you look at the comments, and in all comments sometimes she'll have something like that was really cool, you know, like that was a cool outfit, or like, do you know where I can buy that like the dress Missy would like the dress because it has pockets,
Yeah,
and
what materials do you use? That sort
yeah,
of thing.
all of those things like general interactions, and always if you scroll down a little bit, when are we seeing your tits? You know, and it's not sexual at all. It's like me sitting here. It's like somebody coming onto our stream and being like, "When's the fucking start?"
Come on,
Like,
Joel, whip it out.
yeah, like, but you always see that. You see, like, I'm a big fan of the artists, the creators and the builders and stuff, like on TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff. But invariably, you see somebody will sit there, a girl, as long as she's got like a face, somebody's like, "Tits, let's see your tits." And you got to remember the millions and millions of interactions that these bots have. Somebody's going to be like, "You're a girl, let me see your tits." You know, and so eventually, this computer who doesn't know up from down is going to be like, "That's how you do it." You'll be like, "Good morning, tits." You know,
Well,
like,
that's what I'm talking about, though, because I mean, I see your point, but supposedly, according to the article, each of the AIs are their own thing.
yeah,
So
they're still going to be interacting with tens of thousands of different personalities.
right. But
Like,
like,
there's no
what?
way they could get online and interact with two people. Like,
No. What was interesting was how the article goes into depth about like how when programmed, they were programmed by a person, obviously, and then that person's kind of like uh, thought on how to keep people engaged with the AI was almost explicitly made with the intention of like, oh, well, I mean, obviously if this thing shows some sort of romantic interest, we can get people to engage with it more often, and therefore like
Well,
it
then
got
that's
coded
the
into it.
creator's problem for making a sex bot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not specifically a sex bot from what I understand. I just read the article about it because I thought that it was interesting. I mean, there was a piece here in the Guardian that I linked you guys, but then I saw a different article on, I think it was the same AI from a particular YouTube channel I watch, and yeah, I mean, it's wild stuff. I don't know. I thought that it was really interesting because it says a lot about
Like you're
the
falling
nature of AI.
you're falling more into the realm of like social psychology along with technology at the same time, which
Yeah,
it's a very interesting thing because like if like we are a product of our conversations. Like I, as a psychologist, or has been a psychologist in the past, like understand we are a product of our interactions. So like the more we have conversations about like sports, we're going to become more interested in sports. Or like we who talk solely about nerdy stuff because that's all we talk about. Like we are a product of our like environment. And so the tens of millions of conversations that we've had in our life slowly forge us into the beings that we are today, for good or bad. And we don't know. We're a blank slate when we're born. We don't have any idea of up from down. And as it goes, these conversations will guide us in one way or another. And I think you take something that is designed without the reason or emotionality of humanity, that's just to absorb information, but it doesn't have the ability to be like, this makes me uncomfortable, this
yeah. It
makes
doesn't have the
me,
ability to parse that out.
yeah, but without the feelings to get in there and be like, this is how I feel, this is how I interpret, you're going to the thing is going to get worse. It's going to absorb and not be able to differentiate it. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a conversation with a woman and being like, let me see them boobies. But it's got to be the right woman. Like,
Oh
you
yeah,
can't go outside to your neighbor and be like, hey, how you doing? Let me see them boobies. But you can go to your wife and be like, hey, is today a good day to maybe see them? And your wife will do
yeah,
the same thing mine does. To go, leave me alone, I'm at work. And you're like, oh, weird, you know? But you could say things because you've built the right situation. You know that by being able to navigate that due to your emotions and your ability to have judgment. But
yeah. You have a
without,
familial relationship.
well, you're relate. You even know the people that you could say that to. Like you could say random inappropriate comments to as a joke. I don't know how many times I'll call Ben just bored and be like, "What are you wearing?" And he'll just make up some random ass comment. But we do it as a joke. I don't actually ever expect Ben to be like, "Hold on a minute, click, how's that work?" You know,
One of these
because
times.
we have this. Dude, I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, "This is a violation of the game." But I'm just like, we understand because of our intuition and our emotional intelligence to know what it is. We can read facial expressions. We can read context clues. Even though you have the right, you have the access and the consent of your spouse to look at them and make comments to them in a sexual fashion. You also know that consent is finite within a certain period. In the bedroom, probably a lot more open than, say, Target. Like you can't look at your significant other who you have a loving, consensual, healthy relationship. And I'm referring to all three of us. We all have loving, consensual, healthy relationships. Yet I'm fairly certain in the heat of any moment, I'm not going to get Missy to be like, hey, Target, you want to? And she's like, this seems like a time and appropriate place. Like, what I will get is a very, very angry wife that I am being a jackass. Like, but AI does not have that ability. It does not have the ability to interpret location. It does not have the interpret to determine consent, emotionality. It doesn't have all of these things that we learn through the process of growing. And so it gets something that will incorporate enjoyable things like pizza with sex, because both make people feel good. So,
Uh,
and that's the problem.
Jumping off that for a second, Ben, I'm gonna put another thing in the reference material. Can you pull it up for our audience?
Sure.
And you guys can all kind of like check this out real fast, because this is another thing I was like, this one happened a while ago. This one was like, what, like 6 years ago or something like that. Let me know when you guys have it pulled up.
Hold on. Do you want me to show the video?
Yeah, because obviously, like, you know, to give the people at home, you know, like I want to, you know, give them some context as to what we're talking about. It's a quick 2-minute ad for a device which is basically like to turn your home into a smart home, but
Okay.
it does so with a bit of a twist.
Ready to go.
Okay, you guys all set?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Is there sound to it?
There should be.
Like, apparently it texts you and all this shit.
Huh. Huh. Hmm.
I hate that.
Interesting.
So where do we draw these lines? Because like,
Where it's like begging you to come home.
Yeah. I was gonna say initially.
I think we need to retitle this like
Initially.
like ethical media. This is like technology. Where did we go wrong? Like, why are we turning everything into like smut bots?
I mean,
no.
Also, on a different note, why is every advertisement for every phone game some like either like a pull the pin game or like some like stacked girl running around with a sword
and jiggling
like,
everywhere.
I don't know where this happened. Like, I play games like Merge Mansion and Merge Dragons. Like, I don't know where the chesty, jiggly, like e-girl or whatever they're called waifus are. Like, where does that pop in?
well, think about this for a second, real quick here, because this thing apparently connects to like all of your devices. Like, it's a smart home device.
Absolutely
But like,
not. Like,
we've seen space out, like we've seen a Space Odyssey. You know what I'm saying?
We've
know
seen
what happens when robots get too clingy. Okay?
We've seen. Was it Smart House, where the the robot wife goes batshit and starts trying to kill everybody?
Sam, like, that's too much. Like, no, thank you. That's weird.
So like the first one was like, okay, so it's like a Amazon assistant that's like continuously on. I was like, okay.
And begs you to come home.
And then I was like, I mean, people. So there's some people that like, I don't personally do it, but I know there's some people, they got their like alarms set and stuff so that the lights are on at a certain time and they're all that stuff and whatnot. And it's like, that's cool.
But like, as much as I want to live in like a modern Starship Enterprise, you know, where I walk through the
Computer
for me, you know. But until I can get where I could be like, computer.
Oh, great, hot.
Take some food. Like I'll open my own damn doors. Like until it gets that technological.
And it's just like, you know, it comes out there and it's all like, oh, it's an anime waifu. It's just fucking like, you know, like.
Did anybody stop and notice what did she actually do other than just nag the shit out of him all day? Like, did you notice what service did she provide?
She told him to take an umbrella because it's supposed to rain today, Joel. And then it didn't get wet because he brought an umbrella.
She said take an umbrella, and then she proceeded to nag him all day about which.
Come home.
This has nothing to do
Oh, I
with,
miss you. Yeah.
this has nothing to do with anything. This is literally like, how often do you just want to get texts from random people? Which also, on a different note, we could start a business where we just text random people throughout the day and they just pay a subscription fee. What are you
We just
doing?
text them and like, I miss you, and they're like, who the fuck is this?
They do. It's called OnlyFans.
No, that's for boobies. We're
Yeah, but
talking
you can
about
also like you
function here.
tip them enough and they're gonna bug you.
No, OnlyFans are you for fucking
Yeah,
subscribers.
what OnlyFans is there? Most of them
I
don't
don't use it, but it's
do. You're
No,
trying to
I
say
don't.
that, but you know Mary's just got home. You fucking are on. Actually, okay, on a different note, like, I know a lot of people who are like, maybe I should do an OnlyFans. And not that I'm like all about, I want to see people I know be stark naked. I'm not going to get on OnlyFans, mostly because I have an internet and it's got a lot of free stuff. So if I'm going to look at naked people, I'm not looking for one naked person for $29.95 a month. Like, I've got other things I'll spend $29.95 a month, like Audible. But like, some people like that. I'm all for it. That's because I think it puts the control in your hands and it's safer. I mean, like, you want to do it, cool. If I had big old bangers, I'd probably try to monetize those too. But unfortunately, I've got a big old pot belly, like God intended me to have. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm all for it. Like, you want to do it. Sex work is work. You want to put in the work and have it in a safe environment.
Feeds back into
right?
the conversation of ethical consumption of media, you know, because it's like, if someone wants to actually engage in an OnlyFans, or if someone wants to buy like an AI sex bot, or if someone wants to,
I don't think buying a sex bot is media. I don't want to see the film.
No, I mean,
creating of that.
think about that for a second there, because it is in a sense media. You know what I'm saying? You're consuming something. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is not. It's not media in the
That's
same way that
common.
like a
That's
movie
more
is.
like-
You know what I'm saying? But it's still entertainment for you.
Oh, I see where you're coming from. It's just better now. It's not entertainment you're gonna share. You're not
Yes,
gonna be
well,
like,
I mean-
over and double team my sex bot. Not really.
I mean,
Oh,
there's some people who might be into that sort of thing. Joel, you don't
I'm
know.
sure there's at least 5. We have at least 5.
There's like a whole. All of a sudden, we get like 7 people that just logged on. So, is this the double teaming sex bot, Chad? Oh, ah, shit. I didn't mean for that to happen. But no, you know what I mean. Like, they're. I see what you're saying. So you're not saying just media, you know, like print music.
Not just traditional media,
like,
yeah, but
you're
like
talking
also,
sources of entertainment.
yeah, new media as well. I mean, because everything nowadays is done. We can, you know, agree that like a lot of things nowadays are done specifically through the internet. Like ad
Yeah.
campaigns specifically go through the internet because they reach a wider audience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I will say that if I could get an Alexa that was just like a robot butler, and it was just like, sir.
Oh, you can change it. My Alexa,
No, but with a little holographic butler that's like, good morning, sir. You may want to bring
Yeah,
an
like-
umbrella.
Imagine you could put like a Jarvis on your fucking like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's Jarvis. Jarvis is a butler personality, but
Well,
But
Jarvis is a
Jarvis
butler.
also helped him build the Iron Man,
Hmm.
the first Mark One. You know, like he's like, hey Jarvis.
Jarvis was named after
Yeah, I
Tony's
know.
childhood butler.
And but the thing is I think as far as it comes with like our uses of technology, I am actually a private person. Like I don't like to hang out with a lot of people. I don't like to spread business around a lot. If you're my friend, I'll talk to you and talk to you a lot. But I'm not like Missy always teases me. I've got a shut off button where like doing anything, even stuff with family, where I'm like there's a word count. Once you hit it, I'm like off, no more. And like I can only handle so much interactions. Like doing something I enjoy, like I can D&D for hours and that's fine. And I can write for a long period of time and that's fine. But like
Talk
I
about
can't.
looking into a mirror and being filled with righteous fury.
I look into my own eyes and I'm filled with cold rage. We've been saying that was our complaint of Discovery of Witches. We've been running that since we had the discussion.
Which
Marvelous book, terrible emotional wordings. But anyway,
I gotta ask Joel real quick. Did Missy share my idea with you?
oh my God, that was why I logged on later. Was because she's like, picture it, this is it, and I'm like, and she's like, said something, and I was like, and I'm like, she's like, trying to laugh. I'm like, shut the fuck up! I can see you all excited about it. Like you're practically ready to sit down. Like don't even pretend. You'd be all about that Booker movie. Like she's like, that's true, but I'm like, no buts, just fucking do it. I I was telling Ben my biggest fuck up. Where like, okay, one day I was like she was feeling bad about something, and it had nothing to do with her, but somehow she had decided it did. That like she had upset me, and it wasn't her, but she was like, I will play D&D with you, and I was like, no, I don't want you to play
Not
D&D.
right now.
I don't want you to be forced to play it. Like I want you to come to it willingly. And now I'm like, son of a bitch. Like,
You missed your
I-
window, Joel.
well, I think it honestly, I think it was um
Because
right
because
about
Joel, you do know that if you would have been like, Ben, we need another person to play D&D. Missy wants to play.
you were in the area. You were in the area, and I think Brian was also in the area. I want to say it's right after David found out he couldn't make my wedding because of
Yeah.
Isaiah getting COVID. And I was like despondent. Like I was like super depressed. And she was like, "I'll play D&D." And I was like, "No, you're only offering because you're doing it out of guilt." And she's like, "Correct." And I don't like you don't ever want your first memory of playing the game to be like one where you're like I was coerced or I acquiesced to it. Like I don't know. My first time was like honestly, I think my first time playing D&D was more memorable than my first time of getting laid. Like I honestly think I was more excited about that than the first time I ever had sex. Like I remember being like talking on the phone to Missy, being like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go play this." You know, I'd been building it up for like fucking 25, 30 years. Because remember, it was like the forbidden fruit. I couldn't play it. I was raised in
Oh
a
yeah,
very Christian household, so that was the middle of satanic panic. So,
worth the wait though.
and I remember the awkward interaction I had with your wife. The very first, because she was the first person to address me in the campaign, and I had no idea how to talk, no idea what to do, what to play the character, nothing. Yeah, so, but no, I get it.
God, it's
The
so
thing is,
good.
too, is like going back to the ethical part, like, and I'm assuming the stance we're taking is personal ethics, right? Not like the
Well, yeah,
overarching moral quandary of right and wrong, you know, like.
yeah, because all ethics is in some degree very personal. Because like when
Right.
we're talking about ethics, we have to define what is ethics. What ethics is a moral framework by which an
We live our
individual
life.
or a society, go ahead and
But
structure their
we're not
beliefs. Yeah,
talking societal ethics. We're talking personal for this one.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Because
because everyone's ethics are going to be their own individual. Like you know what I'm saying? Like my ethics won't be the same as Ben's. Ben's won't be the same as yours. Like we can like say, oh well,
but
there
they're
are
all
some.
societally are the same.
Yeah, because there are some common through lines, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that like even among those common through lines, you know, we're not always going to agree. You know what I'm saying? Like there's going to be other people who have either like they're not going to they're either just not going to have the same ethics, or they might even have some sort of like I don't want to say like a perversion or something like that, but like, you know, they're
follow that. Let's follow that thought, because when you're talking, you're raising a thought to me. Like, let's go. What is this thing all about? We're all about gaming. That's the unifying passion of all of ours. We all like nerdy stuff, but what we really like is the interactive gaming of it. We like the game. Like, I don't play MMOs. I don't play online games because I don't like online games. I like games. You know, like I like, and so let's go through that. Like, what is a frustration for you in a gaming environment? Like, I personally, with my players, I have a couple rules. I do not use sexual assault of any kind. You don't get to live a fantasy out of it. You do not get. I will not use it as a plot point. Um, I have a million other ways to move a story. That's my personal choice. I know some people do, and they like to have these things. But to me, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I mean, I don't even like, if you're like, I'm going to go try to seduce the barmaid, you're going to get a fade to black scenario. Like, yeah, you got a natural 20, you do. And if you want to role play it, well, go to a different table, because I don't want to do that. Like, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm a prude, but like, remember, we create this stream knowing our children are going to watch this, knowing that people we know are going to watch this, and I do not want to role play an explicit sex scene and then have my mom be like, you really laid it down on that one, didn't you? I mean,
well, also we're on Twitch, so we have a certain number of things that we can and cannot do.
Yeah, but I also extend that to my personal games. You know, like, I mean, we all know the time where I had to and I think it's I've had to do it twice. One was in Curse of Strahd with you.
We went to a brothel.
And then the other one where you idiots all went to a brothel. And we're like, we're going to role play. And I think that's the time when I came up with that rule of being like, I will never do that again. I'm reenacting tentacle porn. I'm like, this is the last time I will ever play that.
Yep.
I'm going to the black on all intercourse.
That gets really awkward with a small group of friends really fast. Because, like, imagine, like, you and your friend, like, just staring dead-eyed at each other.
Yeah. And I drive it in as hard as I can.
Whoa!
But, or weirder is like if you're in the game and like two characters in the game are like, we're gonna go at it.
Everyone else is sitting at the table and they're just like, okay, well, I'm
gonna
gonna
role play this through. We're gonna do a hard gotta quit this game now. Broadband service comes and kills everybody. You know, like
rocks fall, everyone dies.
What do you mean? Can't you feel the romantical thread between Edward and Ticto? I know it's there. Can't you just feel the dramatic tension? No.
Yeah.
Edward is married, good sir.
Is he? Yeah. See, Ticto's a whore.
Actually, no, that was Zerikos. Ticto doesn't care because sex has nothing to do with time. So.
No.
Or magic.
It's very important to understand, like, when it comes to a gaming environment, like, or a storytelling environment, like, what are your no-goes? Like, I think you all have understood. Since that one game, I don't enjoy narrating sex scenes. Not like I'm squeamish or I have any problem with it. It's just not part of the game that I feel is something that I want to play. I like fantasy, so I like fantasy. If you notice, magic flows super free in my games. Like every creature uses their abilities almost like constantly. And that's what I like. I like the high fantasy. And I know some people like their high fantasies with a lot of sex. Not mine. Like, I feel if suddenly I'm like have access to arcane energies, I'm not going to be like, you know, cast a large person on my junk and go running off. Like, it's just, my choice. Plus, it's something I don't want to. I like when my children play. I don't want to be like having to explain off why we've got one person dry humping a tree over there. Like you've got a level set to what you want your people to play. So I think that's my choice. I mean, I don't know what's everybody else's like.
I mean,
Ben, go ahead.
That's a pretty, like a solid one that I think is we don't really we probably agree on that one, Joel. I think the other one that I don't like is in my games is any kind of like inter party conflict, because a lot of times like characters are very personal to the people playing them. So like when you have introduce any kind of like inter-party like conflict, like PvP, within reason, like it can get very like personal very fast and will often just like break the game. I think that's like my other big thing is I don't like it when PvP happens, because it's like we're supposed to be a team here. Why am I shooting a fireball at Fodor? Targeting Fodor with a fireball. Not just collateral damage. But
interpersonal conflict is fun. Like, I don't know if you guys saw the first season of The Legend of Vox Machina, but like where Vax and Grog have the dick punching contest.
Yeah.
And they raise points by how hard.
Yeah, but like that's not PvP. I'm talking like stealing or like like killing stealing from or killing other party members. Like that's where it's like no.
Yeah, or like the person who like I'm a fan of the social contract of the game. Like you come in now, if you come in there, and I did have an intention of running a game where I wanted one person. We never got to play this game, but the person, I wanted them to be evil, and the whole purpose was to slowly like try to destroy
corrupt the party.
Where they fight him, but they all knew that. They all knew that that one of you was going to be the bad person, and I was going to tell you, and you're supposed to keep it a secret.
Yeah, play spoilers, basically.
Yeah. So, like, now it's just called Among Us, but,
Yeah, and I think... Yeah, so it just makes for not fun, because eventually it gets personal, and, like, you don't get to, like, advance the story at all when you're all fighting over like someone, like you're having to like take precautions because the rogue has sticky fingers and he's going to like steal from your backpack whatever loot you got earlier today, because that's what my character would do.
Diablo 1. I used to play it with Brad constantly. Like and this son of a bitch, we always played the same thing, because Diablo 1 you had what? Barbarian. You had like the barbarian, the wizard, and the fighter. I think that's it. No, I don't even think you had. I think you had an archer. You had like a ranger, fighter, wizard. Like that's it. Just 3 of them. I think the barbarian was Diablo 2.
Yeah.
So it would always be me as the wizard and him as the fighter. And no matter what it was, I would pick up anything. He would cut my head off. I would die. He would resurrect me back up in town, steal all my shit, sell it off. So like I'm broke as shit. Like I have nothing. So it actually, I did not enjoy the game at the time. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world, but I could not stand that because I never got any good gear.
Because he'd end up with 2 monies instead of 1 monies, and you would end up with 0 monies.
I just remember that. Like I hated playing that because it would always. And then they incorporated like you can't kill your party and all that. Nice.
Yeah, you had to like raise a particular like PvP flag before you could actually like know do harm. Yeah.
Yeah, I hated that because it was all the time. Like, and he thought it was riotously funny, but and I ended up like I didn't enjoy playing it.
This is like an online game I played called Borderlands, where I played with a guy that like he was a loot hoarder, so it was like all about Borderlands. You have like all these chests that happen, but like you'd be in the middle of like fighting, and then all of a sudden you turn around and the guy was like running around while everyone else was fighting, and you open the chests went around and opened all the chests and took all the best loot.
So Brian, what about you? What's yours?
I mean, you guys already had some really good ones. So if I'm trying not to like tread over the same
You can
water,
tread over it.
well, I mean, like, because generally speaking, like, sex in gaming, I think that can be done. It has to be done with a very particular group, and it has to be done with like a very deft touch.
Yeah.
And same thing.
Well, I feel like
kinda
it's something you have to set those ground rules like
Oh, certainly, yeah.
beforehand. It's not like something you do off the cuff.
Yeah, with literally any game, and any DM worth their salt knows this. With any game, regardless of what it is, it could be Call of Cthulhu, it could be D&D, it could be Vampire the Masquerade.
Vampire the Masquerade's a lot easier to get it on in than
Oh,
any of
certainly.
those other games.
Oh yeah, and that's kind of one of the things. Like any of these games can technically have some of these elements to it, but a good DM will always communicate beforehand to their players what their expectations are. Maybe not necessarily like everything involving the story. They're not gonna like tell them like key plot points or something like that, but they're gonna tell them like, hey,
Every
this is
time
kind
you
of
come, you get $10. What?
no, they're gonna be like, okay, look, this is what my story is. Like, here's the synopsis. I want to know if you have interest in it. Like if you're a DM worth your salt, or if you've been gaming for just a long time in general, you kind of know that there's like a certain checklist you have to run through. Because like if you're going to run something that's super fucking dark, or if you're going to run something from Call of Cthulhu and it's like 1920s, and like there's some elements of like racism in there or whatnot, because
Right.
it's 1920s or whatnot. You are gonna want to bring those kind of conversations up to your players. Like, hey, I want to let you know that like there's this. There's a particular path for Call of Cthulhu. It's called Down Darker Trails, and what it is it's Call of Cthulhu, but it's in the Old West setting. So like think the 1800s American West setting. And
Lone Ranger
one of the,
or whatever.
yeah, one of the entries in the book specifically goes into Native American stereotypes, because they're all like, okay, look, we understand that like there are gonna be people who are going to want to explore this kind of a background. If you do, we recommend doing your research, letting actually figuring out what tribes of what people were in what areas and stuff like that, and they try to do that in the book to the best of their ability whenever they do bring up any kind of Native Americans, and they don't try to like make it this weird Native American stereotype where they all have like fucking mystic powers to turn into deer and shit like that, like
Feather headdresses and war cries and
yeah.
The 1950s where they all wear the same kind of deerskin jerkin leggings and a one feather in their hand.
Yeah.
Dude,
Peter Pan.
I just
Or
don't
Pocahontas.
I just don't understand. Like, there's so many. I look at it this way. Like, there's so many ways to tell stories that, like, I think a very particular type of person is obsessed with, like, mocking other groups or, like, needing. Like, I've never played a game where I was like, man, I need more racism in this. Like, I need more 1920s white supremacy. That's what I need. To play the game. Like, Call of Cthulhu. I love Call of Cthulhu. It is my second favorite tabletop RPG. Like, and I mean, I love Call of Cthulhu. Like, that one it's phenomenal. But I did not feel like, because you were throwing around racial slurs and like being like, that's a whites only fountain there, Stanley, that the game was suddenly diminished. Like, I did not feel like it needed any of these aspects.
I'm still mad you didn't let me beat up the Blues Brothers.
And I'm not saying it like, oh, I think we should white like I think we should forget that everything happened. No, I know it happened. But the thing is like, in order for me to enjoy a game, I don't need it to happen. I don't need to be like, this is the 20s where blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I know it was horrible. I've read history books. Like, I know it's terrible.
Yeah. We know what it's like when, I mean, we don't personally know what it's like when
no, but I don't
like,
need to reenact it so I can be like,
Yeah.
I'm not being racist. I'm just being historically accurate. No, That's like why I don't get an idea why some of these people get all upset because like they're like, the new Superman might be black. He's not black. Who cares?
Yeah, he's an
As long as
alien.
he can
Fucking let
fly
him be
and
whatever he
shoot
wants to be.
lasers and punch a mountain off of the planet. I don't give a shit. Like everything. What's funny is like everything about Superman is unbelievable, and they're like batting around the idea of like making him a black guy. And they're like, people are like, can you believe it? Like, they're gonna make Superman black. Who cares? They're letting him punch through. Like he could fly into the sun.
Let's be real. He's an alien. He should have been green in the first place.
Yeah, that's right. So what's really crazy is that aliens are only green. Have you not?
I like the
seen
people
Star
who
Trek?
I like the people who watched like what was that movie Superman Returns where he like lifts an entire mountain of kryptonite, which he shouldn't be able to do, and people are
Right.
fine with that. But like the minute that he's gay, it's like, oh well, fucking, you know.
Yeah.
What?
So dumb. Anyways,
Superman's gay? What? How did that happen?
no, specifically, I believe what they did in the comic books recently was they made Superman's son bisexual.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's fine. Which I don't fucking care.
Yeah, nobody
Like,
cares.
That's the whole thing. Is like people that get how, like honestly, I could watch. Like I don't watch Deadpool movies so that I can be like, I bet he fucks a lot. I don't care. Nobody gives a shit with Deadpool. You want swordplay and shit talking. That's it. Maybe instead of a sword, you get a bunch of guns and a sword and shit talking. The shit talking has to be there. But like, or the
And fourth
X-Men,
wall breaking.
yeah, like fourth wall breaking. You want him to look at the camera and go, how's it going? And if he'd be like, hey Joel, it's nice to see you again, I'd be elated and not creeped out because it's Deadpool. Any other show, I'd be like, I'm out. But like, it's like a lot of stories we worry about where people are like, it can't be this. Sure it can. It can be
Totally
whatever
can.
you want it to be. Like, it's a story. And I remember an article with Stan Lee.
I hate it when it becomes a plot device.
Yeah, I remember there was one of the great rants from Stan Lee when Stan Lee was talking about like they're like, well, the Thing can't get beat up by this person and this one, and he goes, yes he can. He can get beat up by whoever I want to beat him up. I'm writing the story. It doesn't matter. So if
Screw you! Now Squirrel Girl's killing him.
He's like, if I want the Thing to get beat up by the old lady selling ice cream, he's gonna get beat up by the old lady selling ice cream. I wrote the story, and you're like, that's true. And I think like I'm all for like putting in like diversity in the show. I don't give a shit. Do it. The only time I'm really like not for it, okay, like is pretty much what we've been doing forever. Like you're gonna be like an African prince. Why is he blonde? Why is he like Snow White, but he's supposed to be born and raised in Kenya? Like I'm just gonna say I feel like that might be whitewashing. Like, but if you understand anything, it's like people are like, there's no black Vikings. The fuck there wasn't. Like they took everybody. Like they didn't care. Like it's just to me, it's.
You weren't there. How do you know?
Actually, that was one of the big selling points behind the Roman army. One of the reasons why their empire stretched so far was because they were really good at recruiting people on the fly from different areas that they conquered.
Didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, serve with us for X number of years, and then you get to be a citizen with all the benefits thereof and a plot of land.
And a
Even
convenient place to have butt sex with your friends. Oh wait, I just don't understand. But remember,
even our modern
aliens-
concept of race is only like what 500 years old.
Yeah, it is. Brought to us by the Catholic Church. So.
Well, I see we're coming up on time a little bit. We have to end things a little bit early today, but I mean, this is an interesting conversation, and I think that like. Go ahead.
No, I do think it's interesting because like one of the things as a Caucasian I take for granted is I never had to look far to see a hero or a storyteller or a great archetype that was not a white male. So I mean, like to me, that was pivotal. Like when I looked at Wally West, the fastest man alive. What is he? Blonde hair, blue eyed, white guy. You know, Batman. dark hair, white guy. And I think a lot of that was a formative part of my life. And I think if you can add people of color into it and see, so a little kid can see a black Bruce Wayne, or a Latino kid can see Hispanic Superman, or whatever the fuck it is. Imagine what that little kid will think. Like, I remember at the time, towel around my neck pretending to be Superman, or, wear your Flash underwear and be like, I'm the Flash. And, like, all the silliness. And to see somebody that looked like you, like that to me, I think is invaluable. So they should do it. If it doesn't detract from the story, now what does detract from the story is a Flash that can't run fast as fuck, a Deadpool who doesn't look at the screen and go, "How you doing over there?" Like, there are things that are critical to the story. Like Wonder Woman probably shouldn't be a dude, but other than that, who cares? Like, and I think that we get lost in these semantics because we think like we're losing our story, but we're not. We've had how many Green Lanterns? Like 6, and I've never been like, ugh. Can you believe they have a girl Green Lantern or Alan Scott's gay? I don't give a fuck. Like, Alan Scott's gay. His weakness is also wood, which is dumb. Like, but what do you look at the Green Lantern for? You don't look at the Green Lantern and be like, it better be a white guy that's afraid of yellow. No, you want to see him make hammers out of green light and hit people in the face.
Yeah.
Like,
And we know that these things have an effect too, because we've seen from different data, like the Scully effect. You guys familiar with the Scully effect?
no.
Back when the X-Files was still a thing, they had the 2 agents and whatnot.
Yeah.
And one of
Believe
the
me,
agents.
I know who Dana Scully was. Man crush on Gillian Anderson back in the day.
Yeah.
I think everybody did.
Because of that character, more women thereafter shortly started to try to join the ranks of the FBI because they saw a woman in a position where they were like, oh yeah, I guess that is a thing. And then like they went to it,
Yeah. I can do that.
I think that it's very important. It's very important to show these depictions of other things. And I mean, I hate to see that we have people still in this day and age who are like, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to be like, I got big hands. That's going to get me this. Like, it might. But, I mean, you ever want to see the saddest stuff in the world? Go to Naples, Florida, and you'll start seeing these, like, plastic women in their, like, 40s and 50s where they're rich husbands, and their only job was to be the trophy wife, and then they're, like, rich husbands, like, traded up, and they're not able to finance their life, even with their alimony. It's, like, the most sad, desperate place I've ever seen. Like, people are just sitting there, like, doing the mating dance, trying to work with what they have and having no marketable skills other than the fact that, they're 75% silicone. And you're like, that's not a marketable goal. Like, but seeing these girls in STEM, dude, one of my son's friends has a sister who goes to the Illinois Math and Science Academy. And you know what, this girl, she's a beautiful girl. Her dad is she's a triracial, actually. She is black, Asian, and Latino, and she's got this very interesting flair. And she does fashion, so she makes these really elaborate outfits. She's always like immaculately put together, and then builds robots. Like, she's literally a living like anime character. Like, she like is like the scientist with the big poofy hair, like the Pokemon professor with her hair is all over the place, and yet is legitimately doing some hardcore STEM stuff. And I'm like, that's cool when you see somebody do that,
Yeah, absolutely.
A good friend of mine, she just became a geneticist. She's Latina with this big poofy hair, and she's like very, very girly, but she's as smart as they come. And I think like that is, we need to see these representations so these girls will look at it, and instead of being like, no, you've got to have these big lips and get a boob job as soon as you're old enough and get Instagram, so that's how you can make money. Like, if you want to do that, great. You want to do that, but like we need more representation of people that are not of just atypical things. We need to make that stuff typical.
Well, I mean,
Cyborg has been black since the 70s.
Yeah, and I think media plays a big part in this because when we talk about like say STEM fields and whatnot, one of the big reasons why, say for example, like computer technology, like has been very male dominated was because like when computers came out, they were very much a gender neutral thing. But when they started like producing personal computers, like home computers and whatnot, they were marketed to more of a male audience, which is why you get a lot of the people who were all like, oh, okay, well, it's a computer, that's a boy's toy, that's not necessarily a girl's toy. And then like now we're breaking down those kind of like different gender stereotypes, and we're getting a lot more women into these STEM fields.
Oh, Missy can argue with her IT. They joke all the time that she speaks IT because one of her degrees is human computer interaction. She codes. She's been coding since she was in high school. Like she's super smart about every lots of stuff. She's like when it comes to computer savvy, she is leaps and bounds past me.
But
And
yeah, I mean, that kind of thing actually does play a role. Our media does shape how we see things, and that's one of the
does
reasons why I thought this conversation around ethics regarding media, is such an important one.
I agree. I don't believe that we need that it's problematic to see a different depictions. Plus, as you were saying in the our last one about Discovery of Witches, I like the story, and so every story is a different interaction. Just imagine what Superman would have been like. Let's say Superman landed instead of in like Smallville, Kansas. He was raised in like dirt poor, like Hell's Kitchen, or like Harlem.
There's also
Or
Red Sun, where he landed in communist Russia.
right, but
Or there
what
was
if you
also an Elseworlds tale. Actually, this was part of Flashpoint, where instead of he running into Kansas, he landed in Metropolis, and basically it was set off like a bomb. So
Yeah.
he was like, yeah.
Ooh.
But I mean, like, you think about the story, like, what would it be like if Kryptonian superpowered Superman was raised in like Mississippi? Like he was raised
Yeah.
as like, what would it be like if he was raised? There's so many different ways to tell a story
Yeah.
and to tell why they would have gotten to where they're getting, and it would have all added to the story of. I mean, we've got what Earth 616. There's a billion different. Like we've got the multiverse, so all of them are equally relevant, which is great. I mean, now we've got 700 different Spider-Mans.
Hmm.
I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Just many, throw them all in there.
Yep.
You know?
And I believe at this point we've come up on our time, Joel. I know you've got a date tonight,
Yes,
so
I do. I'm
Yep.
just feeling good enough to go do stuff. So
Very good.
take her somewhere to go do stuff.
I'll just
right.
wanted to have a couple of announcements before we let Brian wrap this up. Just so everyone knows, our next book for Nerds on Books on June 6th is going to be The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. So if you're wanting to watch that with us, or if you want to read ahead and be a little bit knowledgeable on the topic, so you can actually watch our spoiler section, that's the book we're going to be talking about. And on Monday, we are going to be doing Batman Returns, as in we're going to return to the topic of Batman, because I'm a doofus and did not have my audio working properly for the last one. So it was a great episode, and I screwed it up. So that's what we'll be doing on Monday, and then obviously we'll be returning to Dungeons and Dragons on Wednesday. So
I like how we no longer refer to it as the Eberron campaign because you haven't been in Eberron for like 4
we left Eberron like in month 1. Like you were immediately like, we're going elsewhere now. We're not Eberron anymore.
Right.
So,
All right.
Brian, I'll let you close this out there. I just wanted to get those announcements out of the way.
No problem. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I know that today's episode was a bit more heavy than we're used to talking about, but I thought it was a fun conversation. I'd like to actually talk about this topic again at some point, because I think it is a layered conversation that we can really kind of like dig into. So I think it's a lot of fun. But also, if you haven't seen our stuff, we have our YouTube channel. Please go there, subscribe to the channel. If you like one of our videos, hit the like button. You can comment on it and engage with us. You can also email us as well. We have various emails that you can contact us through, including NOL Talk Nerdy, which is the email you can use to give us your opinion on these Talk Nerdy episodes, as well as tell us what you might like for a future episode. I want to thank everyone for joining us again, and I want to thank Joel and Ben for joining me today to talk about ethics in gaming.
It was a pleasure. We hope to see you again next week.
We'll see you guys around. Bye-bye.
Bye.